This episode of Rick and Rick Rule the World is brought to you by Taskin, the first name in ultra-stylish, premium quality travel gear, like the exquisitely designed Taskin One expandable backpack. With 9 practical variations, the Taskin One is always the right size for wherever life takes you next. Save 30% on your next purchase when you use the promo code R&R Take 30. That's R&R Take 30 at TaskinSF.com.
Next up on an all-new Rick and Rick.
Think fast. What's your number one favorite horror movie?
With Halloween coming fast, the Ricks reveal each of their top 3 favorite horror films of all time to help you decide on yours.
That's right, and it all starts right here, right now.
On the one show where everybody loves a scary Rick flick.
And everybody rules the world.
All right, well, welcome to a special Halloween movie edition of Rick and Rick Rule the World. I'm Rick Matheson with Rick Wooten, and we're counting down each of our top 3 favorite horror movies of all time. Now, if you're going to include The Conjuring, the Evil Dead franchise, Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, or Frankenweenie? Stay tuned to find out, and be sure to share your own favorites with us on social media. Now, this is, again, Rick, is a tough one for me because, as always, it's really how I'm feeling today. I would add a totally different list yesterday and potentially a totally different list tomorrow. So it was kind of tough to do, and I kept toggling between my number 2 and number 1.
Yeah, you know, when you sent this over to me, I was like, oh, this is easy, no problems. I'm like, boom, 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 boom. And it was like, wait, that was 5 booms.
Yeah.
Damn it. How do I narrow it down to 3?
Yes. You know, it's interesting, too. Before we get into this, I'm curious of your take on this. For a time when we were growing up, back in the Betamax VHS wars, it seemed like the thrust of horror movies was to see how gory you can get. And I swear, it seems like a lot of the top horror movies today practically have none.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you know, I think to your point, I think that when we were younger, the gore was a very big part of what made a horror movie. I think that, and maybe it wasn't this movie, but around this time, the switch of the Silence of the Lambs was like paramount, where all of a sudden it became that psychological thriller. That isn't to say Alfred Hitchcock and other things weren't psychological thrillers as well, but I just think in the timeline of things, there was like this inflection point that we made around them, and then it totally went off, and it became, to your point, a little bit more of a in your head versus on the screen.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because if you think about Hitchcock and that sort of milieu, it was before that type of gore was acceptable or even really doable in the movies. And then when we were growing up, it was like, let's see how gross and how gory we can get. And then somewhere around Silence of the Lamb or elsewhere, or just maybe just the general sophistication of movies and audiences, it didn't need to be there as prominently to freak people out. And so it's interesting.
Exactly. I'll go first with my number 3. So my number 3, it's one of my favorite. I talk about this movie all the time. It's John Carpenter's The Thing.
I knew it. Yes, I knew you were going to say it. Yep.
I love this movie. I have seen it no fewer than 50 times. I mean, it's a film that came out back in 1982. It's about a group of scientists in a remote location in Antarctica, and trying to frost it. And in the process of doing that, this thing ends up starting to mimic by the way, spoiler alert, it starts to mimic the scientists and take, first an animal form, then a human form to look like them and act like them. And then systematically goes through and kills them and consumes them in one way or another. And for me, the classic scene is when they figure out that they can test the blood of people to determine whether or not the thing by taking a red hot piece of metal and sticking it into a sample of blood. And if the blood is sentient and it tries to run away from the hot device, they know that whoever that came from has been affected by the thing. And so it's absolutely hilarious as people are freaking out because one of the people on the couch is and the other ones aren't. And it's really dark. It's really funny. And I just absolutely love this movie. They remade it a few years ago. It was good. It wasn't quite as good, but to me, this is like one of the classic horror movies that I grew up with.
2 observations here. First is this movie was also in a show we did on our favorite sci-fi movies. And so here we have an example of a sci-fi horror movie.
Yeah.
I guess in the vein of Alien, too. That could be a horror movie as well as a sci-fi movie. Yeah.
100%. That was in my top 10, by the way. When I put together a top 10, Alien was in there.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. Any top 10's got to have that in there for sci-fi or horror. Then the second observation is John Carpenter crossed between both those worlds of gore and psychological throes, because I seem to remember there was gore, at least blood, but it was very psychological, like that scene. It's just that the fact that these people are tied to the couch made it so hair-raising.
So, Rick, what's your number 3? I'd love to hear what your number 3 is.
My number 3 has got to be Transylvania 65000. Just kidding. I've never seen it. My number 3 is old school here, Rosemary's Baby, 1968.
Oh, yeah.
It's directed by Roman Polanski, and it stars Mia Farrow and John Cassavetes as a young couple that move in this old Central Park West apartment building where they find themselves surrounded by these neighbors who are just a little too friendly and turn out to be way too invested in the baby that Rosemary learns that she's carrying. It's been years since I've seen it, but I remember really liking it because it starts off almost like a different type of movie. It's, young, cool couple, and they move into this building and they're starting their lives together. And it's only over time that they start to get hints that maybe their neighbors are a little bit creepy and what's going on here. And it's kind of in the vein of The Omen, but The Omen came 5 years later. And you got to remember that we've probably all seen a couple of different movies with that sort of concept, but this was the original. And it was Roman Polanski. It's very well done, very well acted. So I recommend it.
Awesome. Yeah. I've seen it. I saw it when I was a teenager. I don't know if I ever told you. So my best friend growing up, his name was Nate, and Nate and I were obsessed with horror movies. And I think it was mostly because it was like that thing you do when you're a kid where you are basically challenging your friend to see how far they'll go. And so we watched all kinds of horror movies, Phantasm, like all the stuff we're going to talk about today. We watched all of it growing up. And, I probably it's good because at the end of the day, I got to have a different perspective on it. I look at it as a creative outlet and almost like a commentary on who we are at the time based on what we're afraid of.
Yeah, totally. When I was growing up, me and my best friend, his name was David, we would stay up every Saturday night to see, whatever the creature features was going to be for that night. Now, as it turns out, you're not far off about that whole challenging each other thing. There was an article in Scientific American this past week about the science behind our love of horror movies, and it was pretty interesting. So apparently humans and many animals, mostly at adolescence, like to freak themselves out. One of the things they talked about was scientists will put a bag with a snake in it and drop it into a group of monkeys, and sure enough, one of those monkeys is going to come over and peek inside, scream, and run away. Well, another monkey will see this, sneak up to that bag, peek inside, shriek, and run away. And then another, and then another. And that was just one example. And so apparently it's a form of, I guess, what's called predator inspection. And it helps prepare animals and people for the big scary world out there. And it's talking about how we're a storytelling species, and the stories that were once told orally and then in books and now in other media play a role in our development, along with scary play like, the parent chasing the child in the backyard, I'm going to get you, I'm a monster, or whatever. It teaches the kids to learn agility. Well, apparently people who saw the movie Contagion back when it came out, they reported less stress when the real pandemic hit, the distancing, the hoarding and whatnot. Apparently they reported less stress because, to borrow, the expression, they'd quite literally seen this movie before. So, see, horror movies are good for you, Ma, and they help you grow. We'll be back after the short break. Hey, Rick and Rick Nation, don't forget to check out our website at rickandrick.com. It's double the Rick in just one click at rickandrick.com. And we are back. Rick and Rick rule the world with Rick Matheson and Rick Wooten, and we're counting down each of the Rick's top 3 favorite horror films of all time. All right. Well, what's your number 2?
When I first saw this movie, this was the first movie in a while that messed with me. Because, like I said, I grew up watching horror movies. I saw a ton of horror movies. But when they switched over to the psychological thrillers, I wasn't quite as prepared for those because they really got in my head. And the one that really got in my head was Seven. Oh my God. This is a great one. It's got Morgan Freeman. It's got Brad Pitt, Kevin Spacey, Gwyneth Paltrow. And it's basically this retiring police detective, Morgan Freeman, and he's trying to close out one of his last cases, and Brad Pitt is kind of like his young
protege type thing, or rookie.
Yeah. And so they're kind of going through that, and basically they get on this case together, and the serial killer is Kevin Spacey, right?
Yeah.
And he's targeting a bunch of people, he's doing all these things, and it's all around the 7 deadly sins,
right?
And each one of them is more disturbing than the previous one. I mean, really, it messed with my head for a bit. Like I was like, like, oh my God, I think I had to watch the movie in two parts. I don't even think I made it all the way through the first time.
The climax scene where Brad Pitt learns about what's happened.
100%. Brad Pitt is standing in a field and you see these power lines and, brown grass all around him. And there's a delivery truck that comes up and drops off a box in front of him. And, he's on the phone with the serial killer and he's like, what's in the box? What's in the box? And he already knows what it is. And, it's basically, Gwyneth Paltrow's head. And it was just like the whole thing all the way through is so disturbing. So in my top 3, this has to be on there. There's no way this can't be on there.
Well, an horrific movie, I'm not sure I would have dropped it into the horror category, only because it's true-to-life human evil versus something that's supernatural.
Totally.
Tell us about your thinking there.
Well, again, for me, a horror movie is one that, is it's intended to scare you, like, particularly after you're done watching it. Like, it's supposed to be one of those things that, like, stays with you. And so for me, 7 is something that was really disturbing, and it really stayed with me for a while, and it absolutely freaked me out for a bit.
Yeah, and wasn't that the movie that informed the Riddler in Matt Reeves' The Batman?
I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard that as well. I've heard that there was absolutely a connection there.
Well, I seem to remember that the trailer for The Batman almost matched exactly to the trailer for, I want to say it was 7.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, my number 2 is, and I mentioned earlier, I had toggle back and forth. Ultimately, this one couldn't get my number 1 slot, but I really like this movie. It's Get Out from 2017.
Oh, yeah.
Written, co-produced, and directed by Jordan Peele. This was his directorial debut, and it was spectacular. It stars Allison Williams. I'm going to get his last name wrong. This guy was so great in this. Daniel Kaluuya and others. And it is, at turns, terrifying and hilarious. It's kind of like it opens up as almost like a Guess Who's Coming to Dinner type movie. It's a young guy who's going to go with his upper crust girlfriend to visit her parents, where hypnotherapy is put into the service of total evil. This movie is a thrill ride, and what was great, Rick, it was so manipulative because I was terrified at points, and then it would do something out of nowhere that would crack me up. The timing in it is perfect, and just a great movie, folks. If you haven't seen it, definitely check out Get Out from 2017.
Yeah, it's a great pick. This was a surprise one for me, and I think this is one of the ones where I've been wanting to see it. I added it into my queue, and then one night I was just totally in the mood for horror movie, so I flipped it on, and it almost lost me in the first 20, 30 minutes because, to your point, it kind of had a different feel in the first half hour or so.
Yeah.
And then it flipped, and it got, dark. And it got, psychological, and it definitely sucked me in. And to your point, they picked the right actor for it. I mean, he does an amazing job. You believe every piece of it.
Yes.
And so I had a lot of fun with this. So that was a good choice.
We'll be right back.
This episode of Rick and Rick Rule the World is brought to you by Taskin, the first name in ultra-stylish, premium quality travel gear, like the exquisitely designed Taskin 1 expandable backpack. With 9 practical variations, the Taskin 1 is always the right size for wherever life takes you next. Save 30% on your next purchase when you use the promo code R&R Take 30. That's R&R Take 30 at TaskinSF.com.
Welcome back. We're counting down each of the Rick's top 3 favorite horror films of all time. Okay, so what is your number 1 horror movie?
If you know me very well, this won't be a surprise to you. In fact, you probably already know what it is. So just in your mind, come up with what you think it is, and we'll test you here in a second. As a kid growing up, like I said, I was really into the horror genre. So Stephen King was a huge influence. I read pretty much all of his books up until I graduated in the 80s. And so for me, the number 1 horror movie is The Shining with Jack Nicholson. That movie was just over the top for me. It absolutely influenced me. It is really what got me into the entire genre when I was a teenager. By the way, they had an amazing cast. They had Jack Nicholson. As you remember, he was a writer and he played a caretaker in the movie. He got isolated in this hotel, and his wife was Shelley Duvall, who was amazing. Their son was there too, Danny Lloyd. And basically, the movie is about him kind of mentally digressing over the winter, being isolated and all all that. And then the haunting of the hotel that he's in. And he basically goes crazy and he starts doing more and more disturbing things, hallucinating and the whole thing. And it's just an absolute fascinating one. And I would argue it's on par with, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or anything else like that is just a masterpiece. I think The Shining definitely holds its weight with all those.
Yeah, so The Shining is directed by Stanley Kubrick, and it came out 3 years after Stephen King's novel did. I somehow saw it. I was a kid when it was in theaters, but I'm a lot younger than my brothers. Somehow I talked my oldest brother into taking me. I'm not sure it was appropriate for my age.
It was not appropriate.
But I liked it. It was scary. If you've seen it, you always think of Jack Nicholson in I'm Home. Yeah, so it was a very good movie. I knew that The Thing was going to be in your top 3, and I think I probably thought The Thing was going to be number 1, but the other movie that I would have guessed would have been Alien. I know that was on your top 10, so I'm not surprised, but I did not foresee that it would be your number 1.
That's awesome. I gotta throw in, the one that just barely didn't make the cut. And again, if you know me, I love this movie. It's a comedy horror, and it's Army of Darkness. I absolutely love Army of Darkness. It's forever been one of my favorite movies. I've seen it a million times. I talk about it way too often.
Yeah, I thought for sure Sam Raimi, Evil Dead would have factored in your top 3 somewhere. So
honestly, it was hard. It was definitely in the top 5. I was, I'm a huge Bruce Campbell fan, and this movie just is like amazing, and I love it. And by the way,
is Army of Darkness the third one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's the fun. So they came out with the first Evil Dead movie, super low budget. I mean,
it was low budget.
Oh yeah, it was terrible. And somebody said that it was like basically their college film or whatever. I don't know if it was or wasn't, but it was that low budget. And so Army of Darkness 2 was basically a bigger budget remake of the first one.
Right.
And Army of Darkness was in my opinion, really the follow on to that. And so in a way, it's almost like the second movie more than it is anything else.
Right. The other thing, too, is a lot of filmmakers get their starts in horror movies because the threshold is actually low. These are not expensive movies. They're sure moneymakers for the studios. And so they can get a green light and then sort of get their chops making horror movies. And then they go on to other things, Sam Raimi being, just one example.
All right. I'm really interested. So, what is your number 1?
My honorable mention would have to be Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell. Have you ever seen that?
Oh, no, I haven't. But I've heard good things about that.
I want to say it's 2007, somewhere in there. And it is Sam Raimi, and it's one of these things where gypsies put a curse on this girl, and within 3 days, she'll be dragged to hell, and her trying to escape her fate. And the ending moments of this movie, it was like, that was worth the price of admission. That freaked me out.
I've heard that. Yeah.
But my number 1 movie, another movie I've never seen in the theater and only seen on TV, is The Exorcist, 1973, directed by William Friedkin from the novel by Peter Blatty. It stars Ellen Burstyn and Max von Sydow and Linda Blair. This is outstanding. And what I love about this, I forget Ellen Burstyn's character's name, but she's an actress and she is renting a house somewhere around Washington, D.C. for a movie shoot when her pre-teenage daughter, Megan, who's played by Linda Blair, starts kind of showing this disturbing behavior. And what I like about this movie is similar to what I like about Rosemary's Baby, is we see her go through like a CAT scan and other things where doctors are trying to figure out the cause of this neurological issue that she appears to be having. And it's only out of desperation that Ellen Burstyn's character goes to seek out a priest to conduct an exorcism. Now, this movie was the highest grossing R-rated horror movie of all time until it, and it was the first horror movie to ever be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture, and it won Best Adapted Screenplay and others. So just a really interesting movie, and so I highly recommend it.
Oh, that's awesome. I was just looking on Google and I searched for the top 10 horror movies of all time. Number 1 is The Exorcist.
Really?
You're absolutely right.
Interesting.
Yep. Number 2 is Psycho.
Oh, another good one.
Number 3 is The Shining, so props to me for that one. I mentioned Silence of the Lambs. That's number 4. Alien, considered a horror movie. Number 5. Rosemary's Baby, number 6. So you're still on.
Wow.
The Conjuring. The next one threw me off. I guess it is a horror movie, but Jaws is number 8. I can picture it. I mean, it freaked the hell out of a lot of people. So I I'm going to give it props. Number 9, this one made sense to me. It should have been higher, is Halloween.
Totally.
Again, a great horror movie. I wish I thought of that one. That one should have been in my top 3.
John Carpenter.
And then number 10 is Hereditary.
There was a TV movie called The Night Stalker.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a vampire movie. So talk about going to The Shining when I'm a grade schooler. For whatever reason, I'm like kindergarten watching this with my family because, again, my brothers are much older than I am. And I had to get up and go to the restroom. This is a terrifying movie. And as I am walking out in the pitch dark house, my brother is laying on the floor around the corner and grabs my ankle and does that sound that a vampire makes.
Oh, no.
Man, that freaked that just freaked me out. Anyway, we still
hilarious.
laugh about that. Yeah.
I bet.
Train to Busan. Have you seen this movie?
No.
Okay, you got to see it. This is a fantastic zombie film. It is a guy who's going through a divorce and needs to pick up his daughter as the sort of zombie apocalypse is unfolding. It's a South Korean movie, so it is all subtitles, and it's one of the best zombie movies I have ever seen. If not, I don't know, could be the best. There is a sequel called Train to Busan Presents Peninsula that's a little bit more of an action movie, in my opinion. But Train to Busan, definitely worth watching.
All right, I just added to my Amazon Prime.
All right, everyone. Well, let us know your list. We'd love to know. So let us know on social media. I guess our handle is Rick and Rick at whatever it's called now, X. And you can find us on LinkedIn and Facebook and pretty much everywhere. So let us know. And keep on coming back to the one show where everybody's name is Rick.
And everybody rules the world.